In the heart of Missouri, under the sterile glow of courthouse lights, a woman stood facing the reckoning of her life. Connie Bobo, 46 years old, executive director of a once-admired nonprofit, now accused thief. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the defense table. Every camera lens in the room seemed to lock on her face. That same face once photographed at ribbon cuttings, charity banquets, and smiling beside children holding free lunch boxes. But today, there were no smiles. Only silence, heavy and expectant. The charge was simple and devastating. She had stolen $10 million meant to feed low-income children. Money from a federal program under the U.S. Department of Agriculture, meant to fill empty stomachs, now allegedly spent on mansions, houses, and luxury cars. Prosecutors called it a betrayal of public trust. The defense called it a misunderstanding gone too far. And as Connie Bobo stared at the jury before her, she knew this trial wasn't just about money. It was about who she really was, or who the world believed she had become. For 10 years, New Heights Community Resource Center in Bridgeton, a quiet suburb of St. Louis, had been known for one thing: feeding children who needed it most. It began in a church basement, with folding tables and donated cans of beans. Connie Bobo was at the center of it all, eloquent, driven, a woman who spoke like she carried the city's struggles in her voice. She had charisma that drew people in. Local news outlets called her the heart of Bridgeton. When COVID hit, she was on camera distributing food parcels, telling reporters that no child should go hungry because of circumstance. The image was perfect. Too perfect, perhaps. Behind that image, a paper trail was forming, one that would unravel everything she had built. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, funds programs that reimburse nonprofits for every meal served to children in need. Each sandwich, carton of milk, and bag of fruit logged, counted, and reimbursed. It was supposed to be simple. Feed the kids, record the numbers, get reimbursed. But for Connie, that wasn't enough. According to federal prosecutors, between 2018 and 2022, Bobo began inflating the numbers. Instead of serving 3 million meals, she claimed nearly 10 times that. Invoices were doctored. Attendance sheets were copied. Children who didn't exist were served meals they never received. Within months, New Heights was claiming more reimbursements than some of the largest nonprofits in state. The money poured in millions of dollars, and then it started disappearing. Neighbors noticed first. A sprawling mansion went up in the St. Charles area. Granite driveways, imported doors. Rumor had it, the house had an elevator, 2 stories of marble and glass. Then came the cars, a bright yellow Mercedes-Benz SUV, driven not by Bobo herself but by her boyfriend. Family members suddenly owned new homes, some under shell company names, others gifted in cash. Yet, on paper, New Heights was still a nonprofit struggling for funds. Volunteers began whispering. Vendors complained of delayed payments. But whenever anyone questioned the books, Connie smiled, calm, charming, persuasive. She always had an explanation, a misfiled invoice, a delayed reimbursement, a clerical oversight. And for years it worked. It all might have gone unnoticed, if not for one man. Jerome Keller, a mild-mannered accountant contracted by New Heights, had begun to see inconsistencies. Receipts didn't match delivery logs. Purchase orders claimed 200,000 gallons of milk, yet only 20,000 were ever bought. He confronted Bobo in her office one morning. Keller, these numbers don't add up, Connie. We're claiming more meals than we could possibly serve. Bobo, coolly, you're reading the wrong spreadsheet, Jerome. Trust me, everything balances out. But it didn't. When Keller pressed again weeks later, he was quietly dismissed. Restructuring, the letter said. 2 months later, Keller contacted the USDA Office of Inspector General. He handed over a flash drive filled with spreadsheet receipts and email exchanges. It was the beginning of the end. In early 2023, federal agents began discreetly auditing New Heights operations. They visited partner schools, spoke to the kitchen staff, counted supply trucks. What they found was staggering. Invoices for food that was never purchased. Storage facilities listed as meal distribution centers that were, in reality, empty lots. Falsified attendance rosters featuring names of children who weren't even enrolled in local schools. By July 2023, agents had enough. At dawn, they raided New Heights offices in Bridgeton. Computers were seized. Boxes of files stacked in the parking lot. Connie wasn't there that morning. She was in her mansion, the one prosecutors would later claim was purchased entirely with stolen funds. Her arrest came quietly 2 weeks later. Neighbors watched as black SUVs rolled up the driveway. Within minutes, she was let out, still in her robe, hands cuffed, eyes hidden behind large sunglasses. For a woman who had once been celebrated for giving back to her community, it was a fall from grace unlike any other. 3 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of aggravated identity theft, 1 count of obstruction of an official proceeding. If convicted, she faced over 20 years in federal prison. Prosecutors alleged that Bobo funneled money through multiple shell companies, using fake documentation to justify reimbursements. Her alleged motive? Greed, plain and simple. But her defense told a very different story. Her attorney, Katrina Spearman, stood before the press and said one line that would ignite the courtroom battle ahead. Connie Bobo did not set out to deceive anyone. She was trying to help her community. And when mistakes were discovered, she tried to fix them. It was a bold claim, one that divided public opinion instantly. In Spearman's version, Connie was an overworked executive trying to juggle too many programs under chaotic federal regulations. Errors, yes, but not crimes. Fraud requires intent, Spearman reminded the jury, and there is no proof she intended to steal. Connie herself stayed mostly silent, except for one quote leaked from jail. Everything I did was for the kids. 3 weeks before trial, prosecutors made an offer, a plea deal, 10 years in prison, if she admitted guilt and forfeited the assets. Her lawyers urged her to consider it. She refused. "I'm not admitting to something I didn't do," she told them. "If I go down, I'll go down telling the truth." To some, it was defiance. To others, delusion. Either way, the case went to trial. St. Louis County Courthouse. A packed gallery. Reporters shoulder to shoulder. Bobo entered wearing a navy suit, her hair neatly tied back. The woman who once cut ribbons was now cutting glances between jurors. The prosecution began with a phrase. This is not a story about charity. It's a story about betrayal. They laid out the numbers. $20 million in claimed reimbursements. Less than $3 million in actual food purchased. Millions diverted into personal accounts and property deeds. Each exhibit drew gasps from the audience. The defense countered with confusion and chaos, arguing that New Heights had grown too fast, too big, and that federal systems were unclear. "You can't convict a woman for being overwhelmed," Spearman said. But the jurors weren't just listening to numbers. They were watching Connie, her eyes, her posture, her every blink. Midway through the trial, prosecutors unveiled something new, a handwritten letter, recovered from a safe during the FBI raid, addressed to her boyfriend. Inside, one line stood out. "If they ever come for me, just remember the money's not all gone, and don't say a word." The courtroom went silent. Spearman immediately objected, claiming the letter was taken out of context. But the damage was done. Whispers filled the room. The jurors looked uneasy. Outside the courthouse, emotions ran high. Former volunteers gathered with signs, some demanding justice, others defending her legacy. One woman, holding a worn-out food box with the New Heights logo, told reporters, "That woman helped me when nobody else did. She might have made mistakes, but she's not evil." But another volunteer, voice breaking, said, "I watched her take everything we work for and turn it into her personal empire." The city was divided. Was she a criminal or a community leader who flew too close to the sun? Just when it seemed the prosecution had sealed the case, something unexpected surfaced. During the 6th day of testimony, a subpoenaed witness failed to appear. Jerome Keller, the accountant who blew the whistle. His absence delayed the hearing for hours. By evening, news broke that Keller had been found unconscious in his home, a suspected overdose. He survived, But his testimony was now in question. And then came the real shocker. A new document, an internal email between USDA officials, revealed that New Heights reimbursement claims had been approved manually by a regional supervisor who'd since resigned. The implication: someone inside the system may have signed off on inflated claims knowingly. The courtroom atmosphere shifted. Whispers of inside job filled the gallery. Was Connie Bobo acting alone, or was she part of something bigger? As reporters dug deeper, patterns emerged. That same USDA supervisor, Martin Delancey, had ties to at least 3 other nonprofits under investigation for similar fraud, all connected through the same reimbursement pipeline. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about Connie Bobo anymore. It was about a potential network of misuse, a system-wide scheme that may have used small nonprofits as fronts. When prosecutors were asked about this new revelation, they refused to comment. But for the first time, the defense had leverage. Spearman demanded access to all USDA correspondence related to Delancey. The judge granted a recess to review new evidence. For Bobo, it was a flicker of hope, the first in months. During the break, Bobo sat alone in the holding cell behind the courtroom, her hands clasped. Her breathing is steady. When a journalist later asked her what she was thinking in that moment, she said, "Maybe, finally, someone will see the truth." The defense began arguing that Connie had become a scapegoat, that federal oversight failures allowed fraudulent approvals to go unchecked, and now she was a convenient fall person. The twist stunned everyone. The same woman accused of orchestrating the theft was now painted as a pawn in a deeper conspiracy. The final week of testimony was electric. Each witness, each document, each question, a tug-of-war for narrative control. The prosecution doubled down. This is about greed. She had control. She had motive. She had the money. The defense hit back harder. This is about a broken system that failed its own oversight and chose one woman to take the fall. When closing arguments ended, the courtroom fell still. Connie Bobo looked over at the jury, her face unreadable. 12 strangers now held her fate. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Reporters waited outside, tension thick as fog. And then the call. Verdict reached. The courtroom filled again. Cameras. Reporters. Connie's family sat in the second row, gripping each other's hands. The foreperson stood. On the count of wire fraud, we find defendant. Suddenly, the courtroom lights flickered. A low hum vibrated through the speakers, and the judge halted the reading. Something was wrong. Within moments, the clerk whispered something into the judge's ear. The judge's eyes widened. He looked up. "We will reconvene in chambers immediately. This court is in recess." Confusion erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Connie looked terrified, because what the judge had just been told, off the record, would change everything. Outside the courthouse that night, rumors spread fast. An anonymous email had been sent to both defense and prosecution, containing documents never before seen in discovery, encrypted files, marked USDA confidential, and inside, a revelation. Evidence suggesting someone within the department had altered financial logs after the investigation began, to redirect suspicion away from higher officials. If true, it could mean that Connie Bobo wasn't the only one involved, and that parts of prosecution's case were built on manipulated data. The next morning, the trial was officially paused. The judge ordered a full review of the new evidence. For Connie Bobo, it was no longer just a fight for freedom. It was a fight to expose something far bigger than herself. And as she sat back in her cell that night, staring at the flicker of security light across the hall, one question lingered in her mind, and in ours. What if the real criminals were never the ones on trial,